I'm Chris Hansen, right now on Crime Watch Daily from here in New York City. A woman collapses in court and leaves on a stretcher. It's a shocking end to a sensational trial that rocked San Diego.
It's very bizarre, very bizarre.
Is this woman an evil femme fatale?
She was looking for someone to kill her husband.
Or a heroic mother in fear of her husband?
She had made accusations that he sexually assaulted her, was molesting the child.
Anna Garcia with a fitness trainer turned YouTube cook.
Welcome to my kitchen, where I really like to cook.
Accused of cooking up a recipe for murder.
My friend has just been shot.
But it felt like someone hit me in the back.
Then it was one of the biggest Ponzi schemes of all time. And he is the slippery con man behind the $100 million crime.
He drove a fancy car, he dressed well, waterfront mansion, corporate jets.
Today, how Darren Berg's house of cards came crashing down. And after a daring prison escape, he became a fugitive on the run.
Where Darren Berg is right now is anybody's guess.
Right now.
Go, let's go.
Jason Matera with Crime Watch Daily.
I'm Michelle Sagona from Crime Watch Daily.
This
Elizabeth Smart from Crime Watch Daily. It's Anna Garcia from Crime Watch Daily. You got anything to say?
is Crime Watch Daily.
What do you mean you don't know she's 13?
You're running away now?
Welcome to Crime Watch Daily, everyone. I'm Chris Hansen. We start today in Southern California. That's where a secretive mission in the middle of the night ends with one man in the hospital and two unlikely suspects in cuffs. Anna Garcia has the story, The Parting Shot.
It's the kind of twisted tale the police say is not exactly uncommon in upscale Carlsbad, California, an elite and idyllic coastal enclave a little north of San Diego.
We don't have a lot of crime, but when we do have crime, they are very violent and very bizarre.
This particular violent and bizarre crime beginning with a late-night 911 call from a secluded area of town.
Hello, this is 911.
Yeah. My friend has just been shot.
It appears to be a failed assassination attempt.
Do you know who shot him?
There's a guy lying down like a sniper.
A sniper? Did you see him at all?
Briefly, we saw the gun, and he shot at us like 6 or 7 times.
One of the bullets hitting 46-year-old computer programmer Greg Mulvihill in the left side of his chest.
He's bleeding pretty bad.
And Greg's fading fast.
My friend's getting lightheaded.
That's okay. I got paramedics en route, okay? I have officers en route. I got help out to you, okay?
Greg is rushed to emergency surgery where doctors learn the bullet just missed his heart. At the same time, police are hunting for what they fear may be an armed maniac on the loose.
Initially, you all thought you had an active shooter situation, and
Yes.
this whole place was almost like on a lockdown.
Right. We didn't know what we had at the time of the call.
It wasn't until we got more information that it started sounding less like a random attack and more like a purposeful event.
But who would want Greg assassinated? The handsome computer programmer had married his high school sweetheart, Diana Lovejoy, a pretty fitness instructor and champion triathlete shown promoting her own recipes for women on the go in this YouTube cooking video.
I'm Diana Lovejoy, and quick meals are my specialty.
Greg and Diana had been married for 7 years and went through 8 heartbreaking miscarriages before giving birth to their only child, a son. The struggles to have a baby reportedly added stress to their relationship, and they sought marriage counseling, but the damage was done.
They made a beautiful little boy, but once that was done, once they conceived, that was the end of their marital relationship.
But Greg told detectives that despite their animosity toward each other, he couldn't believe Diana would ever want their 3-year-old son to be left without a father. And Diana seemed more like the perfect working single mom than a would-be killer.
I really like to cook, but I'm often short on time, so speed is the hook.
But detectives would soon come to suspect Diana may have also been cooking up something else altogether. Especially after Greg told detectives why he went to the spot of the ambush.
When you're interviewing the victim at this point, is he in the hospital?
Yes, in the hospital after surgery from his injury. He had told us that he had received a phone call at around 10:30 at night from an unknown number to him.
That caller identifying himself as a private investigator, saying he had information that could help Greg in a bitter divorce and custody battle he was waging with his now estranged wife, Diana Lovejoy.
He wanted to see it. He needed to come to a location within a certain amount of time and look at the information, see if he wanted to buy it from him.
When he's released from the hospital, Greg would return to the scene of the crime with detectives to show them exactly what happened when he arrived at the appointed meeting place, with friend Jason Kovach at his side.
Greg Mulvihill was holding a flashlight or a bike light, and his friend was holding like a mini bat, kind of like for some protection.
And police would make this video recreation of Greg's account of the frightening events.
He is scanning the area
when his light suddenly falls on something moving in the bushes.
And he immediately knew that that was a person laying down that was holding a rifle aimed at him.
Greg and his buddy Jason panic.
But one of them yelled gun as soon as they saw that it was a gun, and they both ran.
Greg getting hit when the gunman fires shot after shot at them as they flee.
So they run off this way, and the shooter runs that way.
The shooter runs that way.
It doesn't take long for detectives to figure out that Greg had been lured into a planned death trap, and they immediately become suspicious of Greg's estranged wife, Diana, when they go to her house around 3 in the morning, just hours after the shooting, to tell her what happened to him.
Why were the detectives so suspicious of her reaction?
Giggling just wasn't appropriate reaction to finding out the father of your child had just been shot and was in the hospital.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Next, police uncover shocking evidence that leads them to believe Diana recruited this hired gun to do her dirty work.
She was looking for someone to kill her husband, and she thought that she found her man.
We return now with more of today's story, The Parting Shot. For that, let's head back to Ana Garcia in Southern California.
Greg Mulvihill is lucky to be alive after being lured into what police call a death trap.
It's not like he didn't get a life-threatening injury. We just happened to live in a time where we have excellent medical care, and he lived.
Investigators wonder if Greg's estranged wife, Diana Lovejoy, may have had something to do with what looks like an attempt to kill him.
So are you immediately thinking wife as a suspect?
Not at that point.
No.
Not necessarily.
But detectives would grow more suspicious when they learned Diana and Greg had been having problems throughout a stormy 7-year marriage, which had effectively ended when their 3-year-old son was conceived.
Mr. Mulvihill stated that was the last time that they were intimate with one another after she found out she was pregnant with the little boy. And they basically lived as strangers in the same house.
The couple eventually separated. The next 2 years were spent locked in an ugly battle over alimony, child support, and custody issues. And it would only grow more bitter when a divorce court judge eventually ruled Diana would have to pay Greg half the worth of the house they'd lived in before separating.
How much money are we talking about?
She had 3 months to give him $120,000 cash.
Diana is said to have been furious and even more angry that the judge had awarded 50-50 custody of their child.
She wanted complete possession of that little boy.
Detectives theorize she may have been prepared to kill him to get her way.
Did you do any interviews with Diana Lovejoy?
I did the interviews. Initially, she tried to distance herself as much as possible.
Detectives have no evidence to link Diana to Greg's shooting until they uncover this store security video of Diana buying a cheap burner phone. And it's a phone number detectives recognize. Turns out it's the very same phone used by the mystery man who called Greg, luring him to this remote meeting spot with the ruse of selling information to help him in his divorce battle with Diana.
And what was her reaction to that?
She tried to come up with a new version of events that had happened.
Diana now tells detectives she bought the phone for a man she hired to scare her husband into giving up his child custody rights before their divorce became final.
Hello?
Diana would identify the man as Weldon McDavid Jr.
Now I'm ready.
A local gun instructor, she says, had been giving her shooting lessons so she could defend herself against Greg, whom she claims was abusing her and their little boy.
She had made accusations that he sexually assaulted her, was molesting the child, was a drug abuser.
Diana told detectives she'd seen a report on NBC's Dateline in 2013 when McDavid was hailed as a hero for helping another woman, Crystal Harris. He claimed he was helping Harris protect herself from an allegedly abusive husband.
I asked her, "Are you prepared to kill him?" Because that is a very real possibility.
McDavid says in the report that he'd given Crystal shooting lessons too.
And after a few moments, she said, "Yes, if I have to."
But Crystal didn't have to. Diana tells detectives it was never her intention to have McDavid kill or hurt Greg unless it became necessary.
She also lets us know that there was eventually a plan to either have Weldon McDavid scare her husband or murder her husband and call law enforcement.
Detectives say Diana used all her charm to talk McDavid into helping her.
Did you talk to either of them about whether they were having a sexual relationship?
They had had sex one time, and she felt it was a mistake because he was married and had a brand new couple-of-month-old baby.
And she says McDavid finally agreed to help her.
She told us that she'd given him $1,000 to scare her husband.
But when McDavid is brought in for questioning, he denies knowing Diana and having any knowledge of Greg Mulvihill's shooting.
I'm asking you where you were at last week.
Where you get shot?
Why do you want me to tell you that?
McDavid insists he was at home at the time of the shooting, and detectives give him an opportunity to prove it.
Can you give me access to your phone to show that you were home by 11?
No, I'm not going to do that because
that's fine, Walt. Hey, so listen, that area...
You guys are trying to accuse me of something.
No, we're not.
Well,
yes, you are.
Well, I'm trying to find out your version of events, and you're telling me I don't know, and I'm not giving you access to the only thing that you possess that shows where you were at.
But detectives tell McDavid they already have DNA evidence placing him at the scene of the crime.
Any reason why you would have any DNA in there? Now, DNA is something that doesn't just fly off and blow down the street. You have to go there to put it there. Would you have been there?
I might have been there, right?
Why would you be here?
I don't know. I don't know what's there.
Then McDavid suddenly remembers going jogging there.
You went for a run back here?
Yeah.
And now he realizes he was tripped up by a sudden call of nature.
I know what you're talking about.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Explain it.
I was on a dirt road, just running along, and I did have to.
That explains it.
Well, not quite.
How much of a coincidence do you think it would be knowing that the area that you took is the area that Greg was shot at?
Detectives tell McDavid he left his DNA on one of 2 towels found at the crime scene.
Did you wipe yourself? Did you use a towel or anything?
Yeah.
Where'd you get the towel?
It was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't get it from anywhere else?
I didn't get it from anywhere else. I saw the towels there.
But detectives had already discovered those towels at the crime scene matched a set they'd found in Diana Lovejoy's home. And they would also find the assault rifle used to shoot Diana's estranged husband among a huge cache of weapons at McDavid's home.
This rifle was found in the garage up in some rafters, and it was hidden.
Now detectives had all the evidence they needed to charge Diana Lovejoy and Weldon McDavid with attempted murder.
We arrested both that same day.
Next, a shackled Diana comes face to face with Greg for the first time since his shooting.
About the time I realized what I was looking at, it felt like I had been hit in the back.
Diana Lovejoy is charged with attempted murder in the attack of her estranged husband. She didn't pull the trigger. Prosecutors say she found someone else to do her dirty work. And the trials and verdicts would make headlines around the world. Once again, here's Ana Garcia.
A somber and humble Diana Lovejoy is led into court in shackles.
Doesn't that smell nice?
The Real Housewife of Carlsbad, California, charged with plotting to murder her estranged husband, Greg Mulvihill, and hiring shooting instructor and former Marine Weldon McDavid as her hitman.
Why did you try them together?
Because it is so clear that this is a conspiracy case where they, did this together.
Now a lucky to be alive Greg would come face to face with Diana for the first time since the shooting. As well as the trigger man, Diana allegedly paid a mere $1,000 to kill him in a late night ambush.
The gunman, lying in the sniper position, shoots 6 to 7 more rounds.
Greg takes the stand to tell how he'd caught a quick glimpse of McDavid hiding behind some brush with a rifle aimed directly at him.
About the time I realized what I was looking at, it felt like I had been hit in the back. The next thing I remember was starting to run.
As McDavid continues shooting until he and friend Jason Kovach are out of range.
And we ran the other direction, away from the gunfire.
Diana shows no emotion as Greg testifies, and her attorneys continue to deny she had any intention of harming Greg, claiming McDavid was only supposed to scare Greg into staying away from Diana and their little boy after accusing him of sexually abusing both of them.
Miss Lovejoy had gone to the Carlsbad Police Department and made a complaint stating that Mr. Mulvihill had sexually assaulted her in her sleep. She said that she suspected that Mr. Mulvihill was molesting her boy.
But the court would hear that a Child Protective Services investigation had found no evidence to support Diana's shocking allegations against Greg.
He had to go through numerous psychological evaluations. He had to see psychiatrists, psychologists, sex therapists. The unanimous conclusion was that this was made up, that he had not molested his little boy. And they ended up determining that actually he was the better parent of the two.
So you don't believe her?
Absolutely not.
Assistant Prosecutor Jody Breton would tell the court Diana simply didn't want to pay Greg his $120,000 share of a house they owned, nor give him shared custody of their son as ordered by a divorce court judge. Instead, the prosecution tells the court Diana chose to kill two birds with one stone by paying Weldon McDavid to kill her child's father.
Diana Lovejoy sets about looking for someone, and she finds that someone when she finds Mr. McDavid.
But McDavid would testify that, like Diana, he had no intention of harming Greg or the friend that was with him the night of the shooting.
I fired 6 shots in the air, and once they started running, I ceased fire.
It's about the strangest offense you will hear for an attempted murder charge. The shooter insists he's such a good shot that if he wanted the ex-husband dead, he'd be dead now.
Marines are taught if they wanted to kill someone, 2 to the center, mass, 1 to the head.
Breton doesn't buy it, telling the court how McDavid had deliberately lured Greg into a death trap with the false promise of selling him information that would help him in his divorce from Diana.
And you could discharge a firearm and there'd be no reason for you to call the police and tell them afterwards?
I didn't call them because I knew that they would view that as me discharging a firearm, but I was actually defending my life.
From a flashlight?
Breton alleges McDavid had his rifle cocked and ready to fire before Greg and his friends spotted him. And Breton tells the jury there is only one decision they can make.
He's still guilty of attempted murder because he took that one shot.
But attorneys for Weldon McDavid and Diana Lovejoy continue to insist they both were only trying to protect her innocent child.
He was simply trying to help stop molestation of a 3-year-old.
Next. This suddenly happens when the jury returns to deliver its verdict.
Her family is screaming, "Help her, help her."
Now to the conclusion of today's story, the parting shot. Once again, here's Anna Garcia.
The fate of Diana Lovejoy is being left in the hands of the jury, who must decide if she is a ruthless villainess who plotted to kill her husband, Greg Mulvihill, for her own personal gain.
I know that you don't have all day. We've got mouths to feed.
Or if this happy homemaker is actually a concerned mother who claims she was just trying to stop Greg from allegedly sexually abusing their 3-year-old son. Now, as the jury is about to deliver its verdict, an anxious Diana sits in court alongside Weldon McDavid, the former Marine she had allegedly hired to shoot Greg. In a failed attempt, he miraculously survived. And Diana appears to be physically ill, waiting to hear the words that will either set her free or possibly send her to prison for the rest of her life.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder in violation of Penal Code Section 182(a).
You could see Miss Lovejoy look over at her defense attorney and, like, what happened? Like, just shocked disbelief.
Now it's time for her accomplice to hear his fate, and Diana Lovejoy just can't take it anymore.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
Diana has suddenly passed out, her body slumped back in her chair as family members cry and scream in horror.
You can kind of see her head go back and her eyes go in the back of her head, and she just slumps over. And it was a pretty loud, audible clunk when she hit her head on the table, and then she kind of spills over onto the floor.
Diana still appears to be unconscious as medics carry her from the courtroom on a stretcher.
So it was quite a bit of chaos.
Doctors would find that Diana had only fainted. But Jody Breton suspects Diana might have even faked that.
You sound very skeptical.
I am skeptical because again, she's somebody who will hire a person to kill her ex-husband. She's someone who will accuse her ex-husband of molesting and sexual assault. So I would not put it all past her.
Breton isn't sure Diana's tears are real either when she returns to court to make a plea for mercy, still denying guilt and still making the same shocking allegations against Greg.
I was sexually abused, and I witnessed my son be molested once. And I did take all the steps I possibly could to ameliorate that situation.
Breton is disgusted that Diana continues to falsely accuse Greg of such an atrocity, especially after a full investigation had found it simply wasn't true and even praised Greg as the better parent.
And he genuinely is a nice man.
Diana insists she never wanted her son to be without a father.
I would never be able to do that. It's so painful that some people in this world seem to think that I would have it in me to do this.
Her partner in crime, Weldon McDavid, also turns on the tap.
I thought of my son growing up without a father. My father was killed. My father was killed when I was 24, and I still haven't gotten over that. I would not take a father from a child.
But the judge appears to be unmoved by anything the two have to say for themselves as he gives them both the max for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. Sentencing Weldon McDavid, the trigger man, to 50 years to life. And Diana Lovejoy, who hatched the plot, 26 years to life. Leaving just about everyone except the two co-conspirators and their defense attorneys in full agreement with the judge and jury.
What did the jury say afterwards?
They didn't believe Mr. McDavid at all, that they thought he was narcissistic and his story was just absolutely incredulous. There was just nothing, no truth to it.
And that Diana was perhaps the worst villain of the diabolical duo.
They believed Lovejoy was the manipulator and the master behind all of it, that Mr. McDavid would have had no reason to come up with this plot or engage in any of this on his own.
Coming up,
waterfront mansion, corporate jets.
he had a taste for the finer things and a bad habit of taking other people's money. Now, the frat boy turned con man is playing catch me if you can with the feds.
Where Darren Berg is right now is anybody's guess.
That's next. Welcome back to Crime Watch Daily. Up next, he made millions of dollars appear, then disappear. But Darren Berg was no magic man. Instead, the feds say he was a con man. And now the man who has been dubbed Mini Madoff has managed to make something else vanish, himself. Melissa McCarty is in Northern California with today's story, The Money Mirage.
He's the mastermind of one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever.
There's no magic here. I mean, you might think it's magic, but it's actually real meat and potato stuff.
The slick scam artist ripped off more than $100 million. $100 million to fund his lavish lifestyle.
He drove a fancy car, he dressed well, waterfront mansion, corporate jets.
Now this Wolf of Washington is playing catch me if you can with the feds. But this guy is no Leonardo DiCaprio.
He vanished within 7 days and nobody knew where he went.
Where the crafty con man is hiding is a mystery.
Where Darren Berg is right now is anybody's guess. Canada, Mexico, Central America.
Darren Berg started his white-collar, black-tie life of crime in college as a frat boy at the Pi Kappa Alpha House, also known as Pikes, at the University of Oregon.
First showed up in Eugene and joined the fraternity in the fall, and they immediately elected him treasurer.
Michael Stone, a former alumni advisor to the fraternity, remembers the smooth-talking Berg dazzled his fraternity brothers with his charisma and business savvy.
We viewed him as the boy wonder.
Because at just 20 years old, the ambitious entrepreneur already owned his own business, a charter bus company touting his own name, Darren Berg Tours.
And so they gave him 2 titles because of that?
Yes, the rest of the undergraduate chapter elected him president of the fraternity at the same time that he continued to be treasurer of the fraternity.
But while his fraternity brothers were guzzling beer, Berg was busy funneling Pike House money into his own bank account.
So you get this call one day from someone in the house panicking.
Yeah, I got a call from the assistant treasurer who called to say that all of their checks were bouncing and that there was no money in the bank account, and they didn't understand how that could be because everybody had just paid a full quarter of room and board.
Stone was concerned, so he stopped by the Pike House to inspect the bank records that Berg kept tucked away in his room. And sure enough, the balance was 0.
He came home at the time that I was looking at the financial records in his room, and he kind of went ballistic. And I said, I'm here to try to find out where all the money went, since everybody says they paid their house bills, but there's no money in the bank account and it's bouncing checks.
Turns out Berg was taking checks written to the fraternity, endorsing them with his tour company stamp, and depositing them straight into his charter bus account.
How much money are we talking that he stole?
About $21,000 at the time.
I mean, these are college kids. That's a lot of money to a lot of those kids.
It was. We ultimately got it all back. His bank, First Interstate Bank, took the hit for having dealt with a fraudulent depositor.
Stone called the cops and the DA about what he considered straight-up embezzlement, but Eugene police never pressed charges, and you won't believe why.
Darren's defense was that he had spent all of this money on behalf of the fraternity, and he was merely reimbursing himself. Lane County District Attorney and the Eugene Police Department felt that that was a good enough defense that they didn't need to investigate.
Berg escaped an indictment, and then, just like the rent money he stole, he simply disappeared.
Well, he's living in this house, and everyone's looking at him like, where's our money? Did he leave?
He was gone and out of town within 7 days. Nobody knew where he went.
Stone never saw the frat fraudster again, but he did finally get a richly defensive earful.
How many weeks or months after until you received that very condescending letter from him?
Oh, that was the same week.
In a scathing letter, Berg writes, "I have at no time ever embezzled any funds from the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity. What an erroneous assumption. Unfortunately, I will be unable to participate in your Perry Mason game. If for some reason, however, you should have any questions, I suggest you direct them to my attorney. He's paid good money to answer stupid questions."
I wrote him a letter back saying, I called your attorney, and your attorney says he's never heard of you. So I'm still waiting. That was classic Darren, puffing up, coming up with this grandiose response and rebuttal that if you just peel back the veneer, there's nothing there.
Where did Darren Berg go? Nobody knew for sure until he resurfaced in Portland, Oregon and started up an advertising business, even bringing some of his former fraternity brothers on board.
Wait a minute. His same fraternity brothers who he stole money from?
A couple, yeah. There was 2 members who worked for him.
He was able to convince them it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
But Berg's new business venture ended up much like the old one, a scam. This time, the U.S. attorney indicted him on bank fraud charges, accusing Berg of stealing $19,000 from a Portland bank in a check-kiting scheme, where an individual writes a bad check on one account and then covers it by writing a second bad check from another account. Berg pleaded guilty, but ultimately dodged a bullet. The slick-talking Berg cooperated with cops, gave the money back, and convinced authorities to let him off the hook.
He ended up making some arrangements where he paid restitution and left town. But as far as I know, his fraternity brothers lost the money that they had loaned him in that business.
From there, Berg takes his sketchy show on the road again, heading to Seattle, where in this gleaming glass tower, he launches yet another new business venture.
Darren Berg's mortgage company, Meridian Funds, was set up to collect money from investors and invest that money into mortgages.
But wait for it.
Instead of using the money to buy mortgages and invest, he was living lavishly off the money, and he was placating his investors who were getting monthly dividend payments by attracting new investors.
That is the textbook definition of a Ponzi scheme. Darren Berg became a master at the game of attraction. Watch as he gives a slick sales pitch to hook prospective clients.
The key for us is to get in front of people and get them to know who we are, get to know how we run our business.
Darren Berg was very convincing, and Darren Berg also always thought he was the smartest guy in the room.
But is he smart enough to outsmart the feds?
He always thought he could stay one step ahead of everybody.
The answer is yes, and you won't believe how he did it.
We return now to today's story, the money mirage. Once again, here's Melissa McCarty.
Chris, Darren Berg owned 2 private jets, several multi-million-dollar homes, but the feds say Berg and his life were the same thing, one big fraud. Darren Berg offers his clients big returns on real estate investments, but he's actually running a multi-million-dollar scam.
He really used the trappings of wealth as a big sales pitch to his investors.
In addition to using his clients' cash to fund the high life, he also used it to launch a lifelong obsession dating back to his college days at the University of Oregon.
Darren Berg was fascinated with buses. His grandfather had been a bus driver, and he heard stories about, his grandfather driving a bus and traveling around, and that really appealed to him. And it stuck with him as an adult.
So Berg cooked up the idea to launch a luxury motor coach company with a fleet of buses catering to high-end clientele.
They were leased out to sports teams, to politicians. The governor of Washington was running for re-election, and she chartered one of his buses for his campaign.
Like always, Berg was able to get away with his high-flying business schemes because his sleek salesmanship lured fresh blood into his web of lies. But also, like always, the golden boy ran off with the gold when his bus company went south.
The key to the Ponzi scheme was always having fresh investors, bringing in new cash. Early on, some of his funds were actually legitimate, but as the years went on, the Ponzi scheme became more prevalent and he became, deeper and deeper in debt.
And right when the king of investor scams, Bernie Madoff, fell from his fraudulent throne, so did Darren Berg. His elaborate house of cards came crashing down.
That just was the beginning of the end for Darren.
He was arrested for embezzling and stashing millions of dollars in exotic offshore accounts.
When people started hearing about Ponzi schemes and a worry about a crumbling housing market, they approached him about getting their investments back, and Darren didn't have the money to pay them back, and so that set off a mad scramble for Darren.
For years, Darren Berg had lived the sweet life. Now, the 51-year-old was about to get his just desserts.
Then they started suing him in court, and they filed lawsuits against him, started seizing his property.
So what did Darren do? He filed for bankruptcy and brokered a deal to help the bankers unravel his crimes. Or so they thought.
The authorities allowed Darren Berg to participate with investigators. The rationale was that it was a very complicated scheme, lots of accounts, lots of paperwork, and who better than Darren Berg to help them decipher it.
But it was all smoke and mirrors.
Darren presented himself as someone who would cooperate. So he was allowed to move from Seattle to take a consulting job in California.
It wasn't long before the feds discovered, like so many other people in Berg's life, they too were being played. Darren was plotting his great escape by stashing money in secret bank accounts in Belize.
He always thought he could stay one step ahead of everybody, ahead of his investors, ahead of the bankruptcy court, ahead of the FBI. He just had this confidence that he could beat it, basically. Beat the rat.
But finally, Berg's time had run out.
Darren Berg was charged with orchestrating Washington State's largest Ponzi scheme.
Berg pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 18 years in the federal pen for fleecing over 800 investors, many of them elderly, out of $140 million in a con he ran over a decade.
He did stand before the federal judge and say that he did these crimes intentionally. He didn't apologize. Darren Berg was not a person to apologize.
Berg spent the next 6 years doing time at various minimum security federal prisons in California.
He's not considered dangerous.
He may not be dangerous, but he is cunning. It was at the Atwater Satellite Work Camp where he performed his ultimate magic trick. He disappeared. Darren Berg was only housed at the Atwater Penitentiary Minimum Security Facility for about a year, but it was enough time for him to realize the only obstacle standing between him and freedom was a fence similar to this. And just beyond the fence, an airport where U.S. Marshals say it's likely Berg hopped a private jet and began his new life as an international fugitive.
The penitentiary, it's in an open field, so there's different means of how he could have escaped, but we're exhausting all leads.
So how is it possible that Berg could simply stroll out of a federal prison?
It's definitely difficult to escape. They do the counts, everybody is watched over, but it's still possible, obviously.
When you showed up, were you looking in all these farmlands in the airport? Were you searching for him literally on foot?
When the team showed up to do their initial investigation, the investigators at the facility, they had already done their own search, and obviously we picked up where they left off.
For now, Darren Berg's whereabouts are anybody's guess.
Do you think he's in this country? Where do you think he went?
I have little doubt that he probably is someplace where it's warm and doesn't have an extradition treaty to the United States. There's a number of those places in the Caribbean. They only exist to hide money.
Where Darren Berg is right now is anybody's guess. I wouldn't be surprised if he was in Canada, Mexico, Central America. Nothing about where he is right now would surprise me.
Darren Berg is now 55. His mug is plastered on wanted posters all over. Tips have poured in from around the country. But as of now, the master manipulator is still on the lam. Obviously, one of his best schemes yet.
He's intelligent and cunning to create a Ponzi scheme and take millions of dollars from hundreds of people. There's no stopping to what he's capable of.